It is Friday here on the North Shore Drive podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We've got Brian Batko on today, and I want to talk about this Steelers offense. It's been a phrase we've heard all week long. The dam is about to break. They're about to break the dam. Okay, but what's it going to take for that dam to break and the Steelers offense to finally start putting points up on the board? We'll talk about that, give you our pick six, toxic games to predict this weekend, and our final predictions on Steelers, Chargers, all here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Hello and welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by Brian Batko. And as always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as the daily content that comes out from all of our Pittsburgh sports writers, like Chip Hammond Football. It comes out every Tuesday for our man right here, Brian Batko. Brian, we have continuously heard this phrase. It's almost like Mike Tomlin's been saying it and the entire team has just been repeating it. They've been having to tap a sign that says the dam's going to break. They're going to break the dam. Something's going to give and the offense is going to start flowing. But for Steelers fans who've been waiting for this dam to be break, this is like the Hoover Dam that has just not broken for the past 4 years. However long it's been since the Steelers offense has been a relevant factor in an NFL season.
I was going to say, Chris, who built this dam? Matt Canada? Randy Fichtner? I mean, how long has this thing been constructed?
I mean, they got to be some heck of an architects because they certainly didn't build good offenses. But in all seriousness, it makes me wonder, part of what, when a dam breaks, that usually it's something that starts momentum when you talk about things like that. And this is a young team and something that, isn't about X's and O's as much. Sometimes it does take just one big thing to happen and then other things start flowing from that, a catalyst, if you will. If there is one aspect to this Steelers offense that breaks the dam for them and then starts the success and everyone starts building off of it, what is that factor in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, to extend this analogy, the Steelers are still 2-0 despite that dam being there, so they're going through the locks. But I would think hitting on some of these deep shots. I mean, Arthur Smith mentioned Justin Fields' deep ball accuracy has actually been pretty good. You just can't really see it because of penalties. Some that are on the defense, DPI, and it's wiping out, which could have been big plays, but you're still getting the yardage out of it from the flags, or obviously penalties on the Steelers offense that are negating plays like the Justin Fields 51-yarder to George Pickens down the sideline. So, I mean, I think, just generally speaking, every team, I mean, you stretch a defense like that and, you watch anybody play the Chiefs and the safeties are way back there out of the screen because they know what Patrick Mahomes is able to do. And if the Steelers are able to finally kind of get that club out of their bag and put it to good use, then that's when you're going to start seeing chunk plays in the running game more than you already have. That's when you're going to see the middle open up for Pat Freiermuth. I mean, it seems like it's coming along little by little. Justin Fields missed him on a couple throws Sunday in Denver, and I could just kind of see from the press box, Pat Freiermuth was trying not to get frustrated, but it's human nature for anybody when you feel like you're open and the ball's not coming your way. There's at least a little bit of disappointment, but obviously it's easier to swallow that when you're winning and when you just got the bag with a new contract too. So I think he's in good spirits. But yeah, I mean, connecting on some of these shots to George Pickens, it'll keep George happy. It'll probably do wonders for Justin Fields' confidence, and schematically it'll open up a lot of what this offense is built on. And I think if there's one, missing piece, I've been pretty pro Justin Fields, I think for the most part, at least relative to what Russell Wilson might be giving you. But I think if there's one piece of the puzzle at which Wilson's better than Fields right now, it would just be the overall ball placement and maybe ability to push the ball down the field consistently, accurately. So if they can start hooking up on some of those, then, man, you're going to have a pretty multiple offense and add in the quarterback run game element that Justin Fields gives you, and all of a sudden you're pretty tough to stop.
See, I think it is the passing game to Pat Freiermuth that opens it up.
Do you think it's kind of the other way around? You think starting to hit on those intermediate throws will unlock the extended drives? I mean, I get that because, I don't necessarily disagree because you get these third downs and you got to try to move the chains and operate the way the Steelers want to. Yeah, you're going to have to throw the ball into some tight windows.
There was a play that I broke down in our film study on Tuesday where Justin Fields on a third down kind of locked in on George Pickens, and the Broncos called a defense that was very much designed to limit him and kind of give up the rest of the different parts of the field. They called a play where they had man coverage in one half of the field and zone coverage in the other half. And I asked Justin Fields about this, and he said, "Hey, that's something that they do. We talked about it." But on that play, when that happened, it was different because normally when you run man coverage, you're running inside leverage. You're trying to force your man to the sideline and force the throw to have to go over you and into be a great throw over you and to your receiver. But in this instance, it was actually the DB on George Pickens maintain outside leverage because they were protecting the sideline because they knew he wanted to run an breaking route. That's what the Steelers had been doing with George Pickens. And the other side of the field was in zone coverage. And so when Pat Freiermuth ran his route, he broke wide open to the middle part of the field, but Fields was too busy trying to wait to see if Pickens would win his one-on-one against man coverage, which normally he probably would. But in this situation, they were right on what they were trying to do there. And that's a situation where if Justin Fields learns to get to that second part and third part of his progressions and figure those types of moments out, that's what makes this offense truly dangerous. Not just his arm power, not just his speed, but his ability to take what's there in this offense. Because then as a defense, then you can't run those aggressive plays to try to limit George Pickens. And then you can't play the run as aggressively as you do. If you're hitting Pat Freiermuth 12, 15 yards downfield, down the middle, it's going to cause defenses to have to honor that. And also it might make it so that George Pickens gets more open and can't get as much attention in those games. So, but I think both of us agree the passing game coming alive somehow is what could help the dam break. And I think it's chunk plays. It's something that is there. We've seen it on tape. They just have to make it happen.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. Pickens in the egg.
Pickens in the egg.
No, but I mean, I guess like the flip side of it to me would be, I just think that George is far and away your best offensive asset, and I'm willing to put the ball in quote unquote harm's way if it's targeting him, because I think more often than not, he's going to find a way to make a play, draw a flag. You hate to see him come out of a game with only 4 targets. I think now, obviously, that's numbers a little bit deceiving because of the penalties that were wiped away. But yeah, I mean, I thought after, week 1 in Atlanta, not just the way that game played out, but also hearing Arthur Smith talk about it afterward, that we weren't going to see too many of these, low target George Pickens games in 2024, that they were either going to scheme him up or, simply throw it to him even when he's not open, because he's always open. So that to me is just why I would say, connecting on some of those is maybe where the big plays are going to start, and this offense is really going to reach its ceiling. But yeah, I see what you're saying as well there, Chris, because it's not as if Pat Freiermuth isn't capable of making plays over the middle of the field. They've just been kind of averse to using it over the last couple of years, whether that's quarterback based or philosophically based on the way Mike Tomlin wants to play offensive football. Probably some of both.
It is some of both. And Mike Tomlin's even said, "Hey, we've been mindful of how they've taken shots downfield," meaning they've been kind of telling, "Hey, we want to make these shots calculated." But at some point, I do think it's going to require them stepping up, making some aggressive plays, and not even aggressive plays, but just attacking through the air, down the field, down the middle part of the field. As I've said a few times this week, the Steelers have right now Justin Fields, of quarterbacks who have started 2 games in the NFL right now. His 12 passes that have targeted beyond the sticks that have gone on plays that have counted is the fewest among NFL quarterbacks. He's been very efficient. He's completed 8 of them, but the total number is the issue there. And I think that's where, if I'm the Steelers, if I can get him to hit a few more of those in the game, that's going to allow you the chance to be able to do more things in this offense. Because then if you hit it once or twice and then you show you can keep hitting it, defenses will have a choice. Hey, do we keep leaving that there, or do we, or do we open something else up, whether it's the run game, whether it's more one-on-ones for George Pickens? You have to make defenses pick their poison. And if they do that, I think that's the key to getting this offense going. But we have a lot of other things going on. We got our pick six coming up next. We're going to pick 6 games that aren't involving the Steelers in this next segment. And of course, give you our final score predictions and how we think the keys to the game are going to go this Sunday when the Steelers take on the Chargers. We'll do all that here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, a word from our sponsors at SmartSide.
Between beauty and durability, making your neighbors jealous has never been easier. Introducing LP SmartSide Expert Finish Trim and Siding, now in brushed smooth texture. Available in 16 versatile colors, LP SmartSide Expert Finish products help create timeless designs and beautiful, longer-lasting dream homes. That's the beauty of brushed smooth.
We're back here on the North Shore Drive podcast on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Brian Batko, breaking things down in the NFL. We talked a little about Steelers. We'll get back to that game, but it's time to do our pick 6 as we do every Friday, where we give you 6 predictions on the NFL slate this upcoming weekend. Let's get it started. Let's start with the AFC North game here. The Cleveland Browns are hosting the New York Giants. Browns 6.5-point favorites here. Brian, the Browns didn't look good at all in their opener. They looked a little bit better in their second game, but the Giants look absolutely terrible. And that's why I have to take the Browns. I even made them a survivor pick in my survivor pool.
Yeah, the Giants are down bad. Their kicker's getting hurt in chasing down a kick, and they're unable to even operate in the kicking game. That seemed like a very Steelers-ish thing to happen to Brian Dable and company there last week in their loss to the Commanders. So I'm going to go to the Browns, and I don't even think this one's going to be close. I think the Giants are on their way to a pretty terrible season, and maybe the last season with Dable as their head coach, and probably their whole front office too while they're at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
changes. Daniel Jones too while they're at it. Yeah, I think that's a whole
Daniel
reset.
Jones is a 6th-year quarterback. Like it's unfathomable to me sometimes when I think back how long he's lasted.
They should have gotten Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, Giants quarterback, 2025.
Maybe they need somebody. Who's
then that way? Look, he's just a 1-year bridge starter.
Yep.
And then you draft Arch Manning in 2026,
there you go.
And you keep the family business.
Could you keep
it in the family, baby?
That'd be actually really funny. All right, let's.
This is a brilliant plan by me yet again. All right, next game.
He's like, we're just moving on. I don't even keep this up. Let's move on to another AFC North game. This could be the game of the week right here. You got the Ravens visiting the Cowboys. This is a game that I think both teams, they need to bounce back. The Ravens are 1.5-point road favorites here. The Cowboys coming off that blowout loss to the Saints that snapped their 16 home game win streak. They're still at home in this one, but the Ravens are 0-2. If the Ravens lose this game, and they put themselves in the position of potentially down 3 games to the Steelers, 2 games to the Browns, and no one's even played division football yet because that's coming later in the season. This feels like a do or die game for me for the Ravens, and I think that they do enough of the things that could torment the Cowboys offense. So give me Baltimore here. I think they find a way to get a losing streak going on the Cowboys at home.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think the Dallas Cowboys find a way to win this one at home. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a well-played game. I think it could be potentially a high-scoring game. And I think the Ravens, even if they do start 0-3, as I'm predicting, I think as a team and organization, coaching staff, they've got the intestinal fortitude to rebound from that, the way we've seen the Steelers come back from slow starts over the years. But that is a conversation for another day. And for right now, I'm going to say the Cowboys send them to a very surprising 0-3 in a bit of a shootout down there in Jerry World.
That certainly would be interesting. Steelers fans definitely hoping for that. The Commanders are visiting the Bengals in Cincinnati. I'm taking the Bengals here, Brian, but the spread is 7.5 points, and I don't know about all that. Like, I think the Bengals are going to win, but I think it's going to be tight. That Bengals defense inspires no confidence in me. I think the Commanders will put up points in this game, but give me the Bengals to win, but the Commanders to cover.
I think the Bengals defense will rise to the occasion here against a rookie quarterback going on the road. Should be a hostile environment in the jungle. I think it's one of the more underrated atmospheres in the NFL. I've been to Cincinnati's Paycor Stadium plenty of times, and I think they get it going up there when the team is good, as it's been in recent years. But last thing I'll point out here among this trio of games that we just talked about, interesting week for AFC North versus NFC East. Now, that's a one-off for every team in the division. Because the Steelers went ahead and Steelers'd, they've got the Eagles this year in that division. Yeah. The Ravens, by virtue of winning it last year, they get to go to Dallas and play a talented Cowboys team, whereas the Bengals and Browns better not fumble the bag this weekend because they get the Giants and the Commanders as their NFC East opponents. Yeah. And those games results could loom large come December and January when everybody's jockeying for position in this division.
Absolutely. Certainly can be.
The Steelers don't do theirs till way, way, way down the road, but I still think the Eagles, well, I guess I shouldn't say they definitely will be, but I think they'll still be a force to be reckoned with by then if they get through this rough patch.
I think so too. They'll figure it out. Let's get on to some other NFL games that aren't around the AFC North. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're 2.5-point dogs on the road in New Orleans because when the Saints come marching in, they're scoring 40 points. They're averaging over 40 points a game right now. Their offense has been prolific, including against the Dallas Cowboys. Man, I've been impressed by the Saints, and nothing about how they've played gives me a sense that they're going to not do as well against the Eagles. I don't think that they're going to score 40 points again, but I think that they're rolling right now. They're playing at home. The Eagles are coming off a rough loss. I think the Saints find a way to win here, Brian.
I think everybody's being a little over dramatic about Philly right now in the way they collapse down the stretch against the Falcons. And I think this is actually a prime spot for a veteran, experienced team that's been through a lot of battles to go on the road against a team that hasn't had much success lately and maybe isn't quite at the point now where they know how to deal with it in a positive way. So I'll take the Eagles on the road in this one.
Eagles on the road is another split for us there. Let's go to a battle of 2-0 teams. The Houston Texans are 2.5-point favorites on the road against the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. I'm taking the Texans, but Brian, I have to say I've been impressed by the Vikings. Sam Darnold's found a way to get the offense going. Justin Jefferson has said he is quote unquote for sure playing in this game. And the Vikings right now have the number 3 defense in the NFL behind the Chargers and the Steelers, who are the top 2 teams, at least in the scoring part of things. Patrick Jones, former Pitt man himself, he has 4 sacks on this season. He right up there among the best in the league. I think the Vikings do enough to stay competitive in this game. So I get that there's a close spread, but I'm taking C.J. Stroud and the Texans. I think that they do their job.
Yeah, I'll keep it a buck with you. I didn't even know Patrick Jones was still in the NFL, let alone in position to come out here and have a monster season thus far for the Vikings. So good for him, a guy that I covered briefly at Pitt before I moved over to the Steelers beat. I think our buddy Johnny McGonigal did the lion's share of chronicling Patrick Jones's college career. But look, Chris, I'll just be very honest with you. I'm going to keep picking against Sam Darnold. The Vikings might have gone 17-0 in the regular season, and they are facing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and no one has been able to stop them. And I'm going to continue picking against. That's a bad example. They might be 17-0 regular season, and they're facing the Bucks in the first round of the playoffs or second round of the playoffs. I'm still going to pick against Sam Darnold. So I am going to go with Houston Texans on the road in this one too. I'm taking the road Warriors again.
Well, let's talk about some other road warriors, some road favorites, actually. The Chiefs, for the last of our pick 6 here, at -3. They are favorites on the road in Atlanta. We're coming off that big comeback win. They're feeling the energy. Listen, ATL, that was nice. but Patrick Mahomes is coming to town, and that's a whole other problem. I don't think that they give them the space to come back. I think the Chiefs find a way to win here. Brian, what say you about the Falcons and these Chiefs?
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Chris. We're not going to disagree on this game. I think the Falcons are going to be an up and down team all year. I think Kirk Cousins is still taking some time to settle in. He showed the clutch gene at the end the other night, but still wouldn't say he put together a real encouraging 4 quarters for himself. So I think the Chiefs get after him, make life difficult for him, and on the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes probably pick apart the Chiefs underneath if he has to, if Jesse Bates is a problem over there at safety. But one way or the other, they'll find a way to get it done, even with Isaiah Pacheco down and running in some no-name type guys in the backfield this week.
All right, there's your pick 6. Our picks as far as some of the top games this weekend. When we come back, we get to our pick 7, if you will, picking the Steelers and the Chargers. Who wins that game? What are the odds lines? What are the keys to win for that game? All next here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter with Brian Batko. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. They're your mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them today for a free consultation at Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. We're also brought to you by Moon Township Honda, where you can get your new Honda in Moon Township at 5802 University Boulevard in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, or go to their website, moonhonda.com. Here's a message from my friends at Moon Township Honda.
To build the Honda CR-V Hybrid, we took everything you love about the CR-V and kicked it up a notch with greater power for a CR-V unlike any before. Adventure confidently with Honda, Car and Driver's most awarded brand in 10 Best history. The CR-V and CR-V Hybrid, part of the Honda line of rugged vehicles. Visit your local Honda dealer where new vehicles are arriving daily. Buy online or reserve from select Honda dealers.
Back here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, let's get to this Steelers-Chargers game. The Steelers go into this as 1.5-point favorites. Money line set at -120, over-under set at 35.5. Looking at this, I see two very similar teams. When you look at Justin Herbert, he's passed for 274 yards in 2 games. Justin Fields, 273. You look at these two defenses, the Chargers, number 1 scoring defense, Steelers, number 2 scoring defense. So just a lot of similarities there in what they're trying to do. But I look at this and I think the Steelers, a lot is going to come down in the trenches and which team's defensive front exploits the opposing offensive line more in this game. And I feel like that's going to take a lot because both these teams have invested highly in their offensive lines and are paying well on their defensive fronts. What do you think is the big key in your mind to make things happen?
Yeah, Chris, as much as I'm super pumped to see the individual game within the game, guys like TJ Watt against Joe Alt or, Joey Bosa versus Troy Fautanu, I think in some respects, those game records might cancel each other out at times. And I think both offensive coordinators are going to have good plans here to minimize their impacts on the game. So I wonder if this doesn't come down to, a defensive lapse in a secondary or potentially even a special teams play. Don't overlook the litany of injuries right now for the Steelers on special teams. I mean, it has been guys shuffling in and out. Tyler Matakevich gone, Ben Skoranek gone. I mean, he wasn't even on the 53 until early this week, but he'd been playing as if he were the first 2 games and a core special teamer. So it hasn't been an easy week for Danny Smith to get some new faces, but also some old faces like James Pierre reintegrated into the mix. And we know it's only week 2 of having a new old punter in Corliss Waitman. So it wouldn't shock me if there's a special teams play that goes wrong for the Steelers. So I think it is going to be really fun to watch 2 teams that do play smash mouth football. I don't think it'll be bad football the way it was at times out in Denver, because I think these are 2 teams who have built themselves in similar images, which is no surprise because the Chargers are essentially Ravens West. They've got one of their player personnel guys as their GM and Joe Ortiz. They've got John Harbaugh's brother, Jim, as their head coach. They've got Greg Roman, the OC. I mean, they've got the running backs. They've got a couple linemen who've been there. So, yeah, I mean, it's really going to sort of resemble some of those Steelers-Ravens games of old, but a better uniform matchup in this one. Chargers have the best jerseys in the league for my money, Chris.
I love the baby blues. Those are my favorites. Those are pretty
are those. The navy blues, whatever. But
yeah,
I think the baby blue Chargers jerseys might be the best, and I don't think the Steelers are second best, but they're probably top 5, top 10.
They're a classic look that doesn't look boring. I'll say that about the Steelers.
I think I like the Eagles jerseys. Is that weird? Is that a weird take?
Only when they're wearing Kelly green. Those
are even better. Those are even better. But I think even the normal ones are cool with the birds and the things. And I don't know. Just a little jersey digression.
I want to give Mike
for the Bolts though. I mean, those are slick.
No, those are slick. One of my keys to this game is they have to be able to limit what the Chargers have done well with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins running very hard, playing very well, and part of that's going to be disrupting the interior of this Chargers offensive line. Joe Alt hasn't given up a pressure yet. Rashawn Slater's given up one pressure, and that's with them going up against a guy like Max Crosby. So I don't think this is going to be some easy game for T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith to wreck. I think that if there's going to be a side of this Steelers defense that takes over, it's going to be up the middle. It's going to be blitzing Patrick Queen a bit more than they have. It's going to be Cam Hayward putting pressure on things. They do those things, it could disrupt the offense and give the Steelers offense a chance to just hit on a big play, get some field goals, build up a lead. And I think the winner of this game is going to be about who is able to get that lead and force the other team to step out of their shell a little bit. Granted, Justin Herbert, he's been a guy that can sling the ball around, but that's clearly not what they're trying to do in Los Angeles with Jim Harbaugh's new offense. I think the Steelers play a similar way. It's going to be about who gets the other down first and forces them to get aggressive. And when that happens, who wins that'll determine your winner in this game.
And Herbert's banged up right now. I mean, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play, but he's been limited in practice with an ankle injury. So it could go one of two ways. He's either going to be confined to the pocket more than he normally would be, or he's just a tough SOB, which I believe he is, and might still be able to take off. And it could come down to pain tolerance and does he have his normal mobility? We all saw his normal mobility back in 2021. Mike Tomlin talked about that game out in LA where he was just, Steelers were making him look like Randall Cunningham in that one. So it was not a good night for their defense then, but they didn't. Cam Hayward even acknowledged it today. They didn't have Minkah Fitzpatrick in that game. Old Trey Norwood was starting at free safety, as I recall, and T.J. Watt was either out I think he was out entirely for that game. So it's a battle of edge rusher titans in this one. It's a tough matchup for all the tackles involved, and I think it's also funny that the Chargers are copying the Ravens all the way down to the 300-pound defensive lineman converted to fullback with this Scott Matlock guy who's been running in there trying to knock out defenders from the fullback spot. If the Steelers were to do that with one of their D linemen, Chris, who would be their converted fullback, do you think, on this team?
Keanu Benton.
See, I was going to say DeMarvin Leal.
Leal's got. I think he's got the speed. I think that he could be interesting there. I just think that if you want a bowling ball, Keanu Benton fits that. Like if you want a receiving tight end or receiving kind of guy that can do that and do those things, sure, Leal fits that build. But when I think fullback, I know that this is very old school. I think Dan Kreider. I think go in there and mess someone up. And if there's someone that's young on this team that you put in that position, I think Keanu Benton's that guy. But I hear you.
Yeah, he's probably too crucial to the defense. So yeah, somebody like Leal is not really playing on offense. He'd have to want to go in and hit people though. So that could be the mitigating factor there. But yeah, it should be a really fun game. Did not expect this to be 2-0 teams in week 3. I'll tell you that much. I didn't expect the Steelers to be 2-0 necessarily when the season began, but here we are, and another opportunity for Justin Fields to beat a fellow Justin and keep himself in the Steelers and national quarterback conversation here. But the coaching matchup fascinating as well. Tomlin versus Harbaugh, two of the most experienced in the league, even though we know Harbaugh had been doing it in the college level for a while now.
Absolutely. With all that being said, we've broken down the game. We've talked about some matchups here. Let's get our final score predictions. Brian, how you see this going, and what's your final score?
I think prior to the season, I probably would have picked the Steelers over the Chargers in their home opener with the juice of Acrisure Stadium behind them. But what I've seen so far and just the vibe of the Chargers, they're staying in Charlotte all week, so they're taking the long road trip out of this equation. I'm going to go Chargers 25, Steelers 19, higher scoring than expected, but maybe a Justin Herbert hero drive where there's a missed assignment on the back end, a coverage bust, something like that. In the Steelers bend but don't break defense actually does break at a bad time, or like I said, potentially one of those splash plays on special teams set something up. I don't think Justin Fields is going to make like the one big mistake that he was known for at times in Chicago, but I can't lie to you, holding my breath on that a little bit just because he hasn't turned it over in 2 consecutive games. And, he does have a track record over the course of his career, not necessarily even last season. And he's been nails with it so far this season. But I guess the way I'd put it, would not be shocked if there's a big Justin Fields strip sack or fumble that swings this game.
See, the strip sack fumble seems to me like where this game could come into play for whoever wins it. Both teams have really highly talented edge rushers and guys who make those plays. And I think one thing that I always look at, I look to see what's the margin of difference between between how much better one team's defensive front versus the other offensive line versus, the flip side of that. Like for example, how much better is the Steelers defensive front than the Chargers offensive line? Is that gap wider? Is it larger than the Chargers defensive front against the Steelers offensive line? And in this matchup, I think that the Chargers actually have an advantage there because their offensive tackles, Rashawn Slater's been playing lights out. Joe Alt hasn't a lot of pressure yet, and he just went up against Max Crosby. I think that makes this not a gimme for the Steelers to get pressure and to destroy the offensive line. And I think with that, what you're going to see is, I don't think the Steelers get manhandled in this game, but I have this score going 2018 Chargers because I think that Bosa, Mac, they get after Justin Fields, and it leads to a mistake that's rare. I don't think this will be a bad sign for the Steelers. I think it's very much just like, hey, this is where they're at right now. But I do think that this is a week where they learn a little bit more about the offense. They find some success. I got 2 touchdowns, a missed 2-point conversion, and then some field goals to kind of get things going there. I look at this opportunity for the Steelers to say, hey, if they get this win, then it's like, all right, no, we play this style of ball and we're the best at it. And if they do that, I think it would be an interesting message sent to the NFL.
Yeah, it would. And I still think this is kind of a low-key game in the national conversation. But, I mean, obviously it's big for both of these teams who were not expected to really be in the race to win their division because you've got the Chiefs as the big bad in the West. Then you've got Ravens/Bengals, the big bad in the North. So, yeah, a lot at stake. Even though it's only week 3, it's going to be, I think, an emotional game in a lot of ways because they are at home. I think it's going to get chippy. I think they're going to be playing in a phone booth, so to speak, with these 2 running games. So, yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun. And if it goes the way that we're saying here, Chris, even if there's going to be some nuance in our predictions and maybe we see more out of Justin Fields in this offense than we have previously, there's still going to be a lot of chatter about who should be under center week 4 in Indy if the Steelers fall to 2-1. We know that much.
Absolutely. But get all of those breakdowns here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for tuning into the North Shore Drive podcast, which comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily content that comes out from all of our Pittsburgh sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Brian, thanks so much for joining me. Thank you all for joining me. We'll see you again. We'll have We'll have our team at the game at Acrisure Stadium giving you breakdowns also across the weekend. Don't miss all the coverage leading up to it. Any changes, we'll have guys on that. And then you'll see our post-game video after Steelers-Chargers, who wins that game, what came of it. And then, of course, we'll have our Monday episode of the North Shore Drive podcast. Get all of it here with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.